So good morning, everyone. This is the authentic assessment and feedback session for pre-K through 2. So please make sure you're in the right section. And we still have a lot of people coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started just because we have a lot on the agenda. We only have 45 minutes with you. Kathy, go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so my name is Laura Moore. I'm an instructional technology specialist with Technology Services, but I'm also going to be the Steuben Branch tech support person. And I'm going to let my co-hosts introduce themselves. So who wants to go first?
I'll go. My name is Kathy Hurlbert. I am also an instructional technology specialist for the district, and we also have someone else with us.
Hi there, I'm Erin Marshall, and I am also an ITS for the district. Welcome.
All right, Erin, you want to go ahead and go over expectations?
Yes. Okay. So as Laura said, we have a lot to cover with you in the next 45 minutes. So we do have the chat enabled, which Laura asked you to open when you came in. So please go ahead and use the chat feature. And we'll take questions. If there's something that we need to address, right away, we will. There's also the raise hand feature if you have a question that you can use, and unmute. However, we would like for you to stay muted throughout this presentation so that we can get through this information. We will take questions as we can and maybe have you unmute yourself later. And there also will be a link to the slide deck for you at the end of this presentation.
Okay, so we have already established that Seesaw will be the platform you guys will be using for pre-K through 2nd to deliver distance learning content for summer school. So our goal for today's training is to learn how to utilize these features within Seesaw to assess student understanding on an ongoing basis with each activity that we assign. We want to help you build your skill in using Seesaw as well as use the virtual platforms to assess students, give feedback, and use authentic student journal entries to drive your instruction forward.
All right. So we're going to take just a minute to talk about why we assess. So, we don't generally just assess just to get grades or data. We really assess because it's part of the learning process. So assessment helps teachers to know what students understand, where they're at, and help teachers know what to do to move forward. So really authentic assessment gives teachers a map on what steps they need to take to move kids forward. So Seesaw really provides a awesome vehicle to help us do that. So we're going to dig deep today into how to really utilize the featured design activities that are really going to give us a good understanding of where kids are at and what they know and what to do moving forward.
So Seesaw provides us with a great vehicle to assess students in authentic ways to gather information on what students know if used well. So assessments should be focused on specific learning targets, and you'll get those in your summer school IPGs, include evidence of students applying the skills learned, and then give teachers data on student understanding.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive in and kind of take a look at the impact authentic assessment can make. So when I first started teaching, just like most teachers, I stood up in front of the class and I taught, and the kids nodded at me and they smiled. And I felt like, yeah, they're getting it. And then I would come to assessment and I'm like, oh, yikes, we've got some major gaps here. So using Seesaw really was a page turner for me because I was really able to close those daily learning gaps and find out, on a daily basis where my gaps were and what I needed to do. So for an example, I had been teaching a student how to use different spelling patterns to decode words. So she seemed to do pretty well when we worked in small group. I wasn't really worried, but I kind of wanted to assess and see how she's doing independently applying the skill learned. So I'm going to actually let you take a look at what she...
Hi, it's me, and I'm going to show you the words matched emojis. Here we go.
Somebody left paperback
Here's tree, frog, clock, crayon, dress, and brothers, and snail, and plant, and smile.
All right, so as you can see, She started off really well, but as I started listening to her, using the skills that I taught, I realized, whoa, we've got a problem here. She was not always applying the pattern. She was, not looking checking to see if the whole word matched what she was saying. So it really gave me an opportunity to jump in and know what to do moving forward to help this student. So before those gaps get so big, and really with you guys, you are pre-K through 2, you're foundation builders. So your job is just critical. If we don't, close those gaps at an early age, they just grow and grow and grow. And so, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for us to be creating those opportunities for authentic assessment and then doing what we need to do to help close those gaps on an ongoing basis. So by developing tasks that require students to apply content and demonstrate learning, I'm able to, like I said, identify those gaps in learning, make informed decisions to support kids moving forward, and collect data to document that student's progress and performance. So it really is a win-win situation for me as a teacher and as for the student. So it does take a little bit of effort on your part as far as, lesson design, but the gains that you're going to get as a result of that are going to be tremendous. And I feel like it's definitely well worth the effort you put in. So we're going to take a look at how to create those opportunities.
All right. So when you first open up a new Seesaw activity and you go into the editing mode, Kathy, will you go ahead and click on the slide? This actually takes you to a presentation that Kathy and I are doing, I think, in the next section, correct, Kathy?
Yep, next session right after this one.
I've done so many webinars, I don't even remember what I'm doing right now. Anywho's. So this session is called Clickable Learning Boards. And part of what we go over is something that I think every teacher needs to understand. And that is the actual anatomy of a Seesaw lesson. So what you're looking at right now, at the very top, it says the title of the activity. Now, in the title, when you're talking about assessing students, one of the things that we have heard over and over and over again in all of our breakout sessions is that in the background, you guys have been hearing parents kind of helping your kids. Give me a thumbs up if that is a problem that you have experienced. You can do that with a reaction, or you can just do that with your camera. Okay, yes, I think it's a universal problem. So one of the things we came up with through our discussions is in the title of the activity, put that this is an assessment. This is the name or give it the learning target name, put in the due date, and then put in parentheses, this is an assessment. In your written directions part, directly underneath it, you can explain to parents why they should not be helping their students when you guys are trying to get authentic information as to whether they are understanding concepts. So making sure that you are communicating that to parents, I think, is something that we have learned kind of the hard way during these past 2 months. Because you guys are pre-K through 2, it is really, really important that you utilize the next section where it says add voice instructions. Yes, you can type in instructions, but we want them to be as independent as possible. We don't really know if they have parental help or not. So by adding your voice instructions, that's just another layer of being able to explain those expectations to your students. Now, under that, where it is highlighted in red and you see the little arrow going up and down, that is your direct instruction piece. In our next session, if you choose to do the clickable learning boards, we go into great detail on the tools you can use to provide that really good direct instruction and the different ways that you can deliver content to your students. The independent practice part, that is your assessment piece. When you develop a template for students to annotate on top of, that is where they are demonstrating understanding that they are learning from the add multimedia instructions part of your Seesaw lesson. One problem also that has come up in our discussions is the students are not using the same devices. Some are on iPads, some are on Chromebooks, some are on their mom and dad's phones. So a lot of times, if you want them to annotate on top of something, you might want to give them choice. For example, you can say, I want you to answer the following questions. You can either choose to use the text feature and type in your answers, or you can record yourself just answering it with, with your voice, or you can use the pen and actually write it down. So providing those choices is really going to help students who have those different types of devices that might limit the way that they can complete the assessment. Kathy, did you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think you did a great job. If we, maybe after the next slide, if we have a minute, maybe we could hop in and actually look at one of those summer school lessons.
Yeah, because we have 45 minutes, we're not quite sure how much we need to spend on each slide, but yeah, I think that's a great idea. Okay, go to the next one. So on this slide, we have just a few different ideas for different content areas, and I'm not going to take the time to actually read this slide to you because you're going to get a copy of it yourself, but you can see that there are some reading and phonics ideas, there's some writing ideas, and there's some math ideas. So really it's all about how you design the student template, designed to capture student understanding and provide them a way to demonstrate understanding.
All right, I'm gonna hop over to actual lesson so they can kind of see what that looks like, if that's cool.
Sure.
So we know sometimes you take a look at your summer school content. We actually, Laura and I hopped in yesterday and took a look at some of the content that was, being pushed out by the district. And we kind of had to, really give some thought to, okay, how do we transform this into something that I can deliver digitally to kids? And so we want to be abundantly clear that it's very possible and, not super time consuming. But like Laura mentioned, your multimedia instructions is where your instructional pieces are going to go. So we pulled down a lesson, and on this pulled in the PDF of the text, and I can take bits and pieces of the PDF. So I go over, teach the lesson here, go over the sight words, talk about important words we're going to hear. Then we do a lesson on short vowel, long vowel words, and then how to use words around a word that you're not sure what it means. And then modeling with one of those PDFs. So we delivered the lesson here, like Laura mentioned, in the multimedia. Now the assessment piece really comes down here where we want kids to apply the content. So just using the teacher guide as kind of a map to help me know what to put in that template session, what are the things I need to know that kids can do, I was able to develop the activity. So I want the kids to practice with the sight words from the story. I want them to record themselves reading so I can get some assessment data on how that student is doing with decoding words. They're going to try to decode and sort short and long vowel words, and then do a little written response or drawing response in response to what they read. So, and then they can do a little bit of writing about it. So everything that I'm putting down here is a reflection of what I taught up here. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So it really allows me to take a look at, here, deliver the content, and then what can the student do with the content that I taught? Is that clear, Laura? Do you want to add on anything onto that? Or
no, I think that is a fantastic example of how you use the content that CNI is providing for you and turn it into a lesson. I will say one thing, that it does look overwhelming and time consuming, but I think if you guys kind of split up, like who's going to do ELA, who's going to do writing, and use the divide and conquer method, I think things will go a little bit smoother for you. You also have your summer school campus ITS that you can reach out to for help as well.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I did think about as I was pulling this in is I had like I don't know.
How to get these little icons. They're shortcuts. And Catherine Jennings, thank you for posting a link to that for people.
Yep. It's a good resource to have. I didn't, you know, when I looked at the content, there was like a 6-page handout for the student handbook. And I didn't feel like that was the most efficient way for kids to practice with content. So, you know, as a teacher, I looked at that and said, how can I make this a little bit more colorful, a little bit more engaging? And so I took, you know, the content that needed to be taught and just used Seesaw to create that assessment piece. So I really get a better view of what the kids are capable of doing with the content.
And Kathy, can I say one more thing?
Please.
Now, you guys have the ability to add any Seesaw lessons that you create to the district library. So if you would like to share the things that you are creating, that way other teachers in summer school can use your materials, but also you can go in there and look for something that someone else has created so that we're not reinventing the wheel.
Yep. So to do that, anytime you finish creating an activity and you've got it published, you're going to go to your 3 dots, go down to share activity, and you're going to share to school and district libraries, tell it the grade level, the content area, and then you would click submit, and that would make that accessible to the other grade level teachers in the district. So absolutely divide and conquer. And initially when you start building activities, it is a little bit time consuming, but once you get the hang of it, I mean, you can whip activities out really quickly. It's really just like you do with lesson planning. The real time consuming work is the planning piece. Like, what am I going to put in there? What pieces do I want to use? So Laura, great suggestion on divide and conquer. Do we have any questions on that before we go on?
It says, what web page would you recommend to put several PDF pages together? Actually, there is a
for you too.
Do what?
Seesaw actually will do it for you as well.
Oh, to put the pages together? Yeah, because it puts it on, yeah, just demo.
So I went to the create an activity, and I'm pulling it in and you can do this in the multimedia portion or the student template portion. And the nice thing is when I pull in a multi-page PDF, it takes just a second, but I'm able to then get rid of pages and add pages. So I'm in the, it's pulling it in for me. It's going to separate it out beautifully into individual pages. Once it lives here in Seesaw, what I can do is I'm going to take a look at this, and I feel like I don't think that's probably the best format for that activity in Seesaw. I'm going to click the little 3 dots and delete that page. So I can get rid of any pages I don't need, and then to add pages, I click down here, and I'm able to actually kind of set up my template just like you saw on some of those activities. So I click the 3 dots, I can add my background, I can add my shapes, draw those out, change the color, add my text boxes, all that good, whatever I need to do to build this activity. So you've got your text boxes, your camera if you need to insert photos, and then I found yesterday that I can actually go search images that are free to use and just copy and paste them onto my template when I'm working. So, and use your emoji keyboard as well. So on an iPad, you know how to use emojis, but on a computer, you can do the Windows and period key to pull up your emoji keyboard to add emojis if you're having kids, if you want to add some picture clues to kind of help kids. So it's really easy to just pull that PDF in, get rid of what I don't need, add pages or transform pages that are a little bit more kid-friendly for kids. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, Laura?
Yes, I agree.
All right. And again, you can do that in your multimedia section or your student template section. So the upload feature is how you're going to pull those in to the drive, and then the link section we're going to talk about during the clickable learning board section. So they're really easy to put together and develop, but that's really you know, what you need to think about as you're creating is you know, your design. What you're going to put in that student template should be really honing in on that learning target and whether or not the kids can demonstrate and apply with the content. So a couple things that big pictures that I want you to make sure to take away. The teaching portion of the lesson should go in the multimedia section, like Laura mentioned. Anything that you pull in, you can then teach on top of. So I can, you know, record on top of it with the microphone feature. When I'm working in the student template, I don't want to use the microphone feature. I want to use the caption feature, which is the little quotation mark in the lower left. Because if I use the microphone, I'm recording on top of it, and then the students cannot manipulate objects. Hopefully that's clear. When you're creating those student templates, you really want to have students respond with recordings. So this is really where you get the most bang for your buck. So similar to, when I was in the classroom and I had kids do like cut and paste worksheets or, worksheets, I would look at their work and say, okay, they didn't get it, but I didn't really know why. When I'm able to have them do things in Seesaw and actually record and explain and work through things orally, I'm really able to put my finger on, oh, okay, that's where they're at. So I know, you may not necessarily want them to record on every single page because you have to listen to every single page then, but be strategic and look at what do I really need to know from this content, and then have kids record on those pages. Student work in Seesaw doesn't have to be correct or perfect. So assessment rarely is correct and perfect. So I want you to keep that in mind and not be shy about sharing things with families that are not perfect. So it's really, it should really be an authentic piece that demonstrates what the child knows. And so, like Laura mentioned earlier, having those conversations with parents, the parents love their babies and they want them to do really well. But you don't know how to move forward as a teacher if you're not getting an accurate view of what the child can do on their own. Another really good feature in Seesaw is the ability to assign activities to reteach and assess, again, to specific students. So when you're assigning activities in Seesaw, you can select the entire class, but you can also select individual students. So really this is where that assessment data comes into play. So for my student that I recorded earlier, I noticed that she's having trouble checking the whole word when she's decoding. So I would probably create an activity, another lesson, an activity, and assign that just to her to give her more opportunities to learn and practice with that concept. So that's one of the really awesome features of Seesaw, is the ability to differentiate what you're doing with kids. Any questions before we move on?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, let's talk about feedback.
Erin, do you want to take this one?
I can, yeah, I will. So feedback on student work is really what's going to drive that growth and improvement. And we can give feedback to students in a variety of ways. We want to do it often. So just on the slide, we can give feedback to encourage students. If we are reteaching, if we want to acknowledge students, the work that they're doing, redirect students, or to prompt for deeper thinking.
Kathy, is that picture clickable? Does that go back? Can you go back to the other one real quick?
Yeah. I don't know.
Does that picture actually open up to a lesson?
Yes.
This is just a student example. So I just this one I wanted to show you the Bitmoji, which I'll show you and tell you a little bit more about in just a minute. So one way to give feedback is just to use digital stickers, and that doesn't necessarily have to be awesome work. It could be, stickers that say, take a look at this again, whatever kind of feedback you want to use. So in this example, I just used a Bitmoji to lay the work on top. And I did want to point out, you see in my activity how I have the little arrow right here in the activity. That's directing kids to that little caption tool. So like I mentioned, when I'm developing an activity in the student template, I don't want to record on top of the template because then the students can't interact with it. So I use that caption tool, which is the little quotation mark in the lower left when you're editing the activity, but it doesn't really jump out at kids like, hey, there's something here. So Laura Moore had a great idea to drop a little arrow using the shape tool to direct kids to, hey, click here. So you can see like I added additional directions down there on the bottom, because this page, the kids are dragging the labels to match the coins, but they're doing something different on this page. So I wanted to add that caption tool to give a little bit more direction, or for this page, so the kids knew what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Kathy has such great examples. I love it when she goes into one of her Seesaw lessons and explains. I mean, they're so good.
Thanks, because I'm a teacher nerd. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how to get that feedback to kids. So like Erin mentioned, there's so many reasons to give feedback. It doesn't always have to be positive. That's how we want to grow kids, is by giving, really good feedback to them. And there's several different ways that we can do that. We can use voice comments or text comments, and we're going to look at that a little bit more in depth on the next page. And we can also add the digital stickers. And when you get the slide deck at the end, I've actually linked a little tutorial here to teach you how to do the Bitmoji stickers if you're interested in that. But there's all sorts of digital stickers available on the web that you can grab and use as well. One really key piece is that feedback can be given to kids anytime during the workflow. So you can give kids feedback when you're approving an activity, after you've approved an activity, or when you're sending work back to them, which is really an important part of the growth process. So if a student turns something in, you feel like they're not quite right, they missed something, you need to do a little quick reteach. We're going to look at how to use those voice comments or text comments to give kids more information. I did attach a resource article here for you, which gives you just some different ways that you can give feedback to kids. So you can actually, when work goes into Seesaw, you can click the 3 dots in the lower right of that work before or after approving or sending back, and you can mark the item up on top. So if you want to draw kids' attention to something and kind of talk through something, you would click Edit Item, and then you have all the creative tools to actually annotate on top of it. This is clearly not a first grade or kinder writing sample, but I wanted you to be aware that you have that ability as well. So let's take a look at kind of the different ways for you to give that feedback. So anything in Seesaw is going to have these options underneath it. Of course, we all know what the like feature is. Doesn't give a whole lot of feedback. It's nice for kids to see the little heart, but we want to dig a little deeper. So the comment feature here is really where most of your feedback is probably going to live. When I click that comment box, I get a box that looks like this that opens up where I can type comments in, but we're working with very young learners in this group. And so we really want to use the audio comment feature as much as possible. So we want them to hear our voice, giving them some feedback on what they need to look at. So the comment feature and then the recording is where that would happen. There's a little T chat circle, whatever you call that thing, call out next to it. That option is for a private teacher comment. So families and students will not see that comment, but maybe you just need to make a note for yourself to revisit a concept or whatever you need to put there. But it's good for you just to have kind of a record, for yourself of what was going on with the student there. Then as I mentioned, to add digital stickers or text comments on top of student work or to annotate with the pen tool, you're going to tap the 3 dots in the lower right and go up to Edit Item, and then you can work on top of that item to give the student some feedback. Any questions on that came up? Or are we good?
Kathy, yeah, you might know the answer to this. I don't. Katie says she always tries to use the pen feature to annotate and send back feedback, and I have a Wacom, never heard of it, tablet with pen, but for some reason the tablet works on other apps on my computer, but not within Seesaw. Is there a reason? I have no clue. Do you know?
My guess would be I don't know about that particular tablet, but the annotation tools are pre-built into Seesaw. So my guess is if you go in and you tap the pen tool at the bottom, that your pen should work on that device. But again, I don't have any experience with that particular device. So,
and I've used my finger to do that on my tablet or on the touchpad part of the monitor, but I've never used that pen before.
Yeah, I would think you need to like activate the pen before your actual pen would work. Kind of similar on an iPad. Like if I just start writing on the piece of work with my iPad pen, it's not going to work. But if I go down and tap the pen tool and then start annotating, it should work in theory.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
We have some other questions, but let's go ahead and get going just so that we get through all of our slides.
Okay.
Let's see, I think, I'm this one. Okay. So while Seesaw gives a great place to assess, it's not the only way we can assess. Assessment can occur using other tools such as Pear Deck, especially using their templates for littles. And if you just Google Pear Deck templates for littles, then you will get the opportunity to make a copy of that for your own. You can also use tools like quizzes or Kahoot to make assessment engaging and to gather other great data on student understanding. With quizzes, I think you can make them self-paced. Am I saying that correctly, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yes.
with quizzes, I mentioned in an earlier conference we had that Kahoot used to be my classroom fave. Like, I loved it. The kids loved it. But since we've gone into quarantine, quizzes has really like been my go-to because it's a little bit of a teach piece. But when kids are working in the quizzes app, you can enable read aloud feature. So it'll read the questions and answers to kids. So you can assign it in quizzes. You can use quizzes that are already developed or create your own. Then you can assign it to kids with a link, and in their app, when they're working in the app, they can make it read aloud to them. So really easy for young kids.
And Kathy, someone's asking, does that require a login on quizzes?
I think you can set up the quizzes without login and just have the kids put their name in. It's your choice as a teacher whether you require them to log in or not. Same as Pear Deck. You have the ability to go anonymous or vice versa. So with quizzes, you could just not require a sign in, but just require that the kids enter their name when they go in.
Okay, so finally, when connecting virtually, like in Zoom or Google Meets, you guys should have a thought out plan on how you will assess what students know and are able to do similar to what you would do in the guided reading or small group math instruction. So plan out what you want students to learn and do ahead of time, and then how you will have them demonstrate understanding.
Awesome. We covered a lot. I feel like we got through that really quick. So I think we
I
have
know.
some
Yeah, we
minutes
have
to
time for
open up
questions.
Yeah, let's tackle some questions.
And if you would like to unmute yourself, we have 97 participants. Might be talking over each other, but if you would like to just type something in the chat, then we will answer them orally.
Do we have anything sitting in the chat waiting right now?
Can I ask a question about the stickers?
Go ahead, Robin.
Can I ask a question about the stickers? You talked about hovering over the link. I think several of us have been talking about we love your Bitmojis. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Sure.
Because I think that's something that with all the different presentations, several of us had side conversations on, wait, I can do it on my phone. How do I do it on the computer?
Yep. So Bitmoji, you set it up on your phone. So when you want to change your clothes, change your appearance, that needs to be done on your mobile device. But you want to install the Bitmoji extension in Chrome. So to do that, I would go to the App Store. You can probably just Google it, but I usually just go to the App Store and then search Bitmoji and install the extension. So I'm going to hop back over here to show you what that looks like. So once I have the extension here, I can click my Bitmoji to open up. And they actually have made some super cool improvements where they have, you can usually generate specific text. So I'm going to actually do something a little bit more, try again. So it will generate, if you type text in, it will generate a Bitmoji that goes with that text. So to get the Bitmoji then onto the work, I can do right click, copy, and then right click, paste. It's going to drop it in there for me. If I'm working in Seesaw and the right click doesn't work, you can do, once you right click and copy the Bitmoji, you can do Control V when you're on the Seesaw template to drop that Bitmoji in there. So Control V if the right click paste doesn't work. Does that help, Robin?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, that's exactly what I wanted to see how to do. So it's just adding that extension and then going. Awesome.
Yep, add that extension, and you really can use them anywhere. I mean, I absolutely love Bitmojis. Great way to give feedback and just make things a little bit more fun.
Kathy, once you clicked on apps, what did you do after that to add Bitmoji as one of the apps?
So I just Googled Bitmoji extension, and that should take me to the App Store, and then yours will say add to Chrome. And you just click it, and it's gonna live up here, and then you'll sign in with your, I use my Google credentials, whatever you set it up with on your mobile device, and then those will be there, so you can just search and find the Bitmojis you wanna use.
I see download on the App Store or get it on Google Play.
So search specifically Bitmoji extension.
Oh, okay.
So it should come up as Bitmoji Google Chrome.
And y'all, there are some inappropriate Bitmojis. Just beware. And don't use
Yes.
those.
Like the fantastic one, Laura, specifically?
Which one?
The fantastic, where just, yeah, like she said, watch your, watch what you put in there. So
Yeah, yeah.
check your Bitmoji before posting. I'm gonna drop the link to the Bitmoji extension in the chat window so you can access that.
How did you get your cursor to be that cute little purple arrow or even the little hand signal? How'd you do that?
So I am, again, a teacher nerd, and I really love extensions. So again, this one is it's called Custom Cursor for Chrome, and you can search Custom Cursor for Chrome to find it. And when I click on the extension, I can pick different cursors to use. And there's like many, but especially when I'm working like in a virtual environment like this, I just found it's really helpful for me to be able to really draw attention to what I'm pointing at versus using my regular computer cursor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kathy, we have a question asking, can you show how to put a video in the slides of the direct teaching lesson?
So how to insert a video?
Insert a video in the slides of the direct teaching lesson. Yeah.
Okay. So there's actually 2 different ways that I can do that. So I can click video right here and allow my camera, and I can record a video right here on my computer. That's going to give me up to 5 minutes of recording time. And you guys will be super excited to know there is going to be some great improvements to Seesaw in the summer, and you'll be able to add a video per page in the fall. So that's going to be neat. I can add a video directly. The other way is if I'm using a screencasting program like Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify, I can actually insert that video as a link. So in a couple of the trainings that we've done, we've showcased how to use screen recording software like Screencastify, and that will generate a link for me, and I can paste the link there. So you can do it with the camera or the link option, either one.
Kathy, what was the name of that cursor extension called again?
It is called Custom Cursor for Chrome.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Someone asked.
Yeah.
Great transition into who your campus ITS is going to be for summer school. If you're at Windcrest, it's Sarah Sepulveda, and there is her email address. I will be doing Steuben Ranch. Northern Hills is Jessica Winston, and then Larkspur is Maria Garcia Rios. So technically, we are the tech troubleshooters. But this summer, they hired regular ITSs so that we could help you with that instructional integration piece as well. So please reach out to us. I will say that we are part-time only. We are working only 4 hours a day, and I'm not sure what our hours are going to be quite yet. We haven't determined that part of our job yet. So if you have any questions, once again, please reach out to us.
All right. Well, I know we are right on the money with time, but our email addresses are listed there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And like Laura just mentioned, you've got your instructional technology person for that tech issue we were just talking about. I would definitely reach out to Maria because it sounds like there's something wonky happening, so she can help you troubleshoot. But hopefully you guys took some good information away today. And we will be rocking and rolling with clickable learning boards in about 15 minutes. So hopefully we'll see you guys there, but otherwise have a great summer.
And I did put the link into the today's slide deck in the chat feature. I'll do it a couple of times because I know people are saying thank you and goodbye, but I just put it in there for you. So go ahead.